Ever noticed how you understand something right until you try to explain it? Like, it makes perfect sense in your head, and then you open your mouth, and suddenly, it doesn't. That moment is more important than it looks, because it's not failure, it's feedback. Most people think learning happens when you read more, watch more, or highlight more. But honestly, that's only half the process. The real shift happens when you try to explain what you just learned out loud to yourself. Yeah, it sounds a little weird at first, but stay with me. If you've ever studied for an exam, you've probably had this experience. You read a chapter, it feels clear, you nod along, and then the next day, it's gone. Or worse, you sit in the exam hall, see a familiar question, and your brain just freezes. I've been there. I remember once trying to prepare for a presentation. I read everything, took notes, even reread them twice. But when I practiced explaining it out loud, I got stuck halfway through a basic point, and that's when it clicked. Understanding something quietly isn't the same as understanding it clearly. When you explain something, even to yourself, your brain is forced to organize the idea. You can't hide behind vague understanding anymore. You either know it or you don't. And that's exactly what makes this method so powerful. Here's how it works in the simplest way. First comes confusion, not obvious confusion, the sneaky kind. The kind where you think, yeah, I get it, but you haven't really tested it. Then comes explanation. You try to say it out loud. No notes, no copying, just your own words. And this is where things get interesting.
Because your brain starts searching for clarity. It tries to connect pieces. It fills gaps or exposes them. Sometimes you'll pause mid-sentence. Sometimes you'll restart. That's not a problem. That's the process working. Now, here's the key part. After you stumble a bit, you simplify. You take the idea and break it down like you're explaining it to someone younger than you, or someone who has zero context. You remove complicated words. You focus on what actually matters, and something shifts. The idea becomes lighter, cleaner, almost obvious. Think about this for a second. If you can explain something simply, you probably understand it deeply. And if you can't, there's still something missing. Let that sink in. Most people avoid this step. They stay in passive learning mode because it feels comfortable. Watching videos, reading notes, highlighting pages, it feels productive, but it's also safe. Explaining, on the other hand, feels risky because it exposes gaps, and nobody likes feeling like they don't know something they thought they knew. But that discomfort, that's where real learning starts. I've noticed this especially with students. You can sit through a lecture, take perfect notes, even memorize definitions, but the moment someone says, okay, explain it in your own words, everything slows down.
And that's not a bad thing. That slowdown is your brain actually thinking, not just recognizing. There's a big difference between recognizing something and understanding it. Recognition is fast. Understanding takes a little effort. So here's something simple you can try. After you learn anything at all, pause for a minute, close your notes, and just try to explain it out loud. It doesn't have to be perfect. You might ramble a bit, you might pause. That's fine. Just don't look at your notes right away. Let your brain struggle a little, because in that struggle, it starts building real connections. And if you get stuck, that's your cue. Go back, review that part, and try again. Each time, your explanation gets a little clearer, a little shorter, until eventually it just clicks. That's mastery. Not because you memorized more, but because you understood better. Honestly, this surprised me when I first tried it. It felt too simple. Talking to yourself, really? But it works. Not in a flashy, overnight way. More like a quiet improvement. You notice you forget less. You feel more confident explaining things, even in conversations or exams. And over time, learning feels less heavy, more natural. So if things ever feel confusing or overwhelming, don't rush to consume more information. Instead, pause. Explain what you already have, even if it's messy, especially if it's messy. Because clarity doesn't come from adding more. It comes from making sense of what's already there. And once you start doing that regularly, learning stops feeling like something you have to force. It becomes something you can actually trust. If this made you think a little differently, try it today with something small. And if it helps, feel free to share your experience or pass this along to someone who might need it. And don't forget to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel.